Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the newest episode of Pastors Getting Personal podcast. And this is where we just have an unscripted conversation together with lead pastors. I'm a former lead pastor, church planner for 15 years. And over the decades or almost decades of ministry, I've just enjoyed my frank conversations with other lead pastors behind the scenes, the part that you don't see in our lives. And so these podcasts are designed just to get to know the human side and the highs, the lows, the great things to celebrate, and the things that, man, they're just challenges working through. And so all these guys on here and ladies that you're going to see on here they're all real and legit. There's no hiding behind anything. So with that being said, we just got to record a conversation I had with Pastor Dean Deguara from Real Life Church in Sacramento. And it was an incredible time, a rich time, and just about, successes, failures, identity, and church growth. Things are exploding and doing so well for Real Life Church, and I'm pumped. He's a personal friend of mine, and I know you're going to enjoy the podcast. So I encourage you, watch it till the very end, and you're going to be blessed and encouraged. All right. Thank you for watching Pastors Getting Personal podcast, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode moving forward. Bless you guys. Cool. Hey, thanks for coming, Dean. I appreciate it.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go ahead and jump in and just read bio, and then we can catch up and talk. Let me read this here. Pastor Dean and Amy Deguara have been serving as the lead pastors of Real Life Church since June 2017. With over 30 years of ministry experience together, they've faithfully served in a variety of roles, including youth pastors, executive pastors, and church planters. New Life in Fair Oaks and Jesus Culture. Mm-hmm. Married for 33 years, they have built a beautiful family and are proud parents of their two amazing young adult kids. Their son Josiah, who plays in the NFL.
Yes, sir.
Or he's been on the Packers and the Jaguars, and
hopefully this year going to be on the Cardinals. We'll see.
All right, we should know soon, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then he's married to their wonderful daughter-in-law Ashton, and their daughter. I didn't know your son had a daughter.
It might have just been a typo or something in there, but no, that's his wife Ashton, and then my daughter.
Oh, got it. My bad. Okay, your daughter Mariah is pursuing her passion for healthcare and a registered nurse. Pastor Dean is a graduate of Southwestern Assemblies of God University in Texas and holds a master's degree in global ministry design from Southeastern University. Together, Dean and Amy are passionate and committed to leading a church that looks, lives, and leads like heaven in one of the most diverse zip codes in the nation. Is it really?
Yeah. It's top 20.
Wow. That's what
the school district is number 2 in the nation. Most diverse school districts, yeah.
Wow. So I was reading this. What is global ministry design?
Basically, it's a master's program through One Hope with Rob Hoskins. Oh. So really how to design, scale ministry, nonprofits, churches. And so it was a real, actually really applicable, really enjoyed the program. And so just how to scale and design, ministry.
Is that where it had to do a lot with missions? Because I know you got a big heart for missions.
Yeah, a lot of it was, taught by folks that have a lot of missions experience. Most of it is his staff you're learning from, and then there are some professors from SEU that jump on as well. So great program. Highly recommend it.
Oh, nice. So you've been pastoring Real Life for 7 years.
Be 8 next month, June.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, June will be 8 years.
Okay. So before I go into that, I've enjoyed, just so others know, because we knew of each other running the same circles probably a year and a half ago. My wife and I, we started making it our church home. And man, we become such good friends.
Yeah.
And just hanging out And I mean, one of my good friends, man, I had some, and I'm like, we just hang out and gel together. Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun for me, especially in the season I'm in with, I don't have like a...
Pioneering, man. You're blazing trails.
Yeah, I'm not like with a church family that I'm with all the time. So being able to have, friendships, like a friendship I have with you has just been so key for me and support. And you've really supported, I just want to thank you because you've really supported me in this season when I need the support the most from individuals.
Yeah, I've appreciated our friendship too. Again, we knew each other, or of each other, I would say, for a long time. We got a lot of mutual friends, but just never really crossed paths. And just to be able to, I think one of the things I appreciate about you the most is that, we can just laugh at each other, not take each other too serious.
Yeah.
And, man, I need that. You know, so I appreciate just being able to laugh and, just not take each other so seriously.
Well, too, it's like people in your church aren't going to do it as much. So when you're with other pastors or whatever, it's like, dude, come on, we're not playing here, man. Yeah. So whenever I'm with other guys, actually, we were at district council, and we were with, I had a bunch of senior pastors, and man, we're just chopping each other up, dude. But it's so much fun and laughing because we don't take each other serious.
Yeah.
And so when you get around that, it's like, okay, this is a safe dude.
Yeah.
We can joke around, we can be unfiltered and just be ourselves. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's so good about that. So I appreciate that about you too.
Yeah, it's cool to been able to get to know your wife as well.
Yeah.
So that's been fun.
So real life is in an awesome season, man. I'm in this zone where I'm not in a church, like pastoring a church, so I get to talk to a bunch of different friends, and it's cool to see how much I just like celebrating with everyone, and like it's going so awesome. But you guys are really taking off. And I don't know, share some of what's happening and over the 7 years where the church has been and how you guys are to today.
Yeah, well, we took over for a church planting legend, Dr. Scott Hagan. Yeah. I mean, has planted 2 incredible churches, Real Life being one of those churches. And so, he obviously left us a great core of people. I think we had about 400 people when we took over. And, a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak. We went through, a pandemic like everybody else did. And, getting on this side of it, we went from 2 services to 3 services. And, I mean, it's really to look what God is doing across the landscape. I like to just say I'm just glad Real Life is a part of what God is doing. I mean, because you look across our region, there's some great churches. Yeah. You look even in, our denomination. I mean, there are some churches that are thriving, churches that are coming back to life again. Yeah. And, my heart's desire for, I got saved. I didn't know it back then, but I got saved in a revival when I was a senior in high school. I didn't know what revival was back then. But to look back and to realize, man, what I'm experiencing now, I've been waiting for since I was 18, 19 years old. We talked about it. Yeah. And, it goes way beyond church growth. And, I always tell people I'm just not that smart. I'm not just that good. It's just fun to partner with God, be a part of what God is doing in the Big C Church, not just Real Life Church. But yeah, we're seeing God do some amazing things. But, just like everybody else I talk to, literally every pastor I talk to is saying, man, we had baptisms, salvations, baptism of the Holy Spirit in our youth group, or, so God is moving, and I mean, that's just been my heart. I just want to be a part of it.
Well, I think whoever says like the church, is not doing well today in America or has negative things, I'm like, you haven't been to the churches I've been to. Yeah. Because especially being able to get around, to just see, the record-breaking attendance. All of those things are happening everywhere. Yeah. And I mean, that's exciting for me because several places are, we're hearing that.
Yeah, there's a fresh hunger. And it's exciting. And again, I literally, right before Easter, I had 4 pastors reach out to me. People heard that we were adding services. We added a 3rd service in 2023, a 4th service just this year. And I had 4 pastors call me who were adding either a second or a third service.
Wow.
And so it's not just us. It's
Right.
it's exciting because it's everybody's experiences. Had another pastor call me today.
Wow.
Hey, we're thinking about adding a second. And so God's moving.
Yeah. So one thing that I appreciate about your leadership, because when I go in, especially being around you for a few months, just on a church level, I get to observe, okay, like what makes this guy like who he is, because you're unassuming. You don't come in like, okay, the personality's here. You just walked in the door, or you don't need attention or spotlight or whatever. I'm like, okay, what is it about this guy? And then you see you in the pulpit, and it's like, okay, he's quiet out here, but he gets in the pulpit, dude, and he's like, he's all excited, full of fire and everything. And one thing that is just interesting, whenever I see someone who's not real, I don't know how to say it, like just real dynamic, just walking around the halls
Right.
or being there, I'm like, there's something about this guy's leadership that doesn't need to do that. And when I've talked to people, it's clear you just have a servant's heart. And I know, I'm saying nice things about you. You're probably not, you're humble and taking it, but seriously, because you really have a servant's heart, and you care about people genuinely. And I even had someone tell me this one time, that I think it was Mark Duvall told me how after their dad had passed away or he was getting sick, they were trying to move out of the house or whatever, and you just dropped what you were doing and went over there and helped move. And it's just that kind of stuff, man, that makes people fall in love with you. And so your leadership is way outside of Sunday morning, outside of the church walls. So, I mean, and you haven't shared everything, but I mean, you took the church, it was about 400, and not that it's all about numbers, but that's a great sign of growth to go from 400 with 2 services. You went to 4 services. You're over 1,500 now. You're seeing that. That's just incredible, like explosive thing. And I know you, especially in your humility, it's like, hey, I just get to be a part of it, etc. But what has been, because now you're doing 4 services, dude.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if everybody knows how that weighs on you. What's it like doing 4, going from 3 to 4? Because 3 is a lot.
Yeah.
But how's your energy and and just?
Yeah, I think it is a lot.
Because you're up here, dude.
Right.
When you're preaching, you're not giving a talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to do it. Number one, I did.
I know.
I did everything I
months.
could. I was telling my staff, I don't want to do 4, but I want to be faithful with what God's given us. I don't want to tell God no. And so, I think I'm a big believer. Like, you can handle whatever God is giving you to handle.
That's good.
I'm not doing it in my own effort, not doing it in my own strength. And so, again, we're only 3 weeks in, and we did an experiment in December. We did 3 weeks, 4 services, just to kind of get a feel. And so we learned some things. We've seen some areas that we needed to shore up. Staff's been awesome with that. And so we made those adjustments, and then I learned from that as well.
Yeah.
And just learning how to pace myself. We did cut back on the time of my message. Usually I would preach 40, 45 minutes. Now I'm preaching 30 minutes. And so it's just a little more discipline.
Has that been really hard for you to cut back? Because once you're at a certain...
Like, for example, this last week, the first 2 services, I got through the entire message. 3rd and 4th service, I only got to, like, barely the second point,
Wow.
And so it's just kind of, and I just go with the flow. After I got those 2 and I was like, I'm good. I just felt like the Holy Spirit was saying, hey, just pause right here.
Yeah.
You don't got to finish
Especially the last one, you can kind of like, whatever. Right?
And you just go watch the YouTube.
Yeah.
So.
Or the last one, you're like, I got to watch what I say right now because I'm pretty loose. I don't know what's going to come out.
Yeah, just Lord, set a guard over my lips.
Yeah, right. So what, over the 7, almost 8 years now, what have been some of the the lessons that you've had to learn? Maybe some things that were pretty like hard lessons for you, that like for you to go to a next level in leadership and to just mature as a leader.
Yeah.
What might come to mind that you really had to?
Yeah, I think going in, number one, I'm not going to be Dr. Scott.
Right.
I mean, amazing, I would say apostolic leader. I'm going to be a horrible Dr. Scott Hagen. And so I think,
if you compare
yourself, leading up to, I didn't even see myself being a lead pastor. I was 47 years old. We were working at, Jesus Culture, thought I would be there, kind of riding into the sunset.
Oh, really?
And I didn't, we didn't really have aspirations at that point in our lives to do anything other than just continue to serve. And so.
And how many years you were there?
So we helped Jesus Culture. We were part of the church planting team, so we were there about 4 years.
4 years, okay.
And so, I was just going about our business there and got an email. I knew actually several people that, wanted the church, and so we were one of the last couples that they asked to consider putting in. So I just say all that, make a long story short, I, wasn't even looking to or desiring to, pastor real life, and God kind of surprised.
Hey, senior pastors, lead pastors, and men's ministry directors, leaders, pastors, etc. Hey, I just wanted to share with you, I don't know if you know about the book that I wrote that recently came out called Fearless Men. And the goal of the book is conquering the struggles, insecurities, and pressures threatening your soul. And so I just want to encourage you to pick this up. It sounds like churches are beginning to use it for small group material. And I'm even getting invited to go and speak at retreats, conferences, and different men's events. So I would love to be a part of what you're doing. And you can visit my website, DaveNovakMinistries.com. I just want to say this. My goal for your men, for any man that reads this book or who I speak to, is I just want to see men that are willing to run through a brick wall for their faith, their family, and their future. And so if you want that, I'm your dude to come out and just be with you guys and minister. So thanks for considering, and I hope to see you soon.
Us. And I think one of the keys, as you're saying, would have been some of the things I've had to learn. I had to learn that, like, to be comfortable leading in my own skin, right? For, you could say 30 years, I pretty much served behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Again, nothing was beneath me, I'll do anything,
Yeah.
And so I carried that over into, leading this church, and I think it really helped just earn the trust of the people. And I think consistency over several years, making some good decisions, getting some wins. One of the things that I learned is that, it's not always a home run, it's just hitting a bunch of singles, getting a bunch of base hits. And I think that's how you could probably describe our first 3 years. It's like, it wasn't about the home run. It was just about getting on base.
Right.
And so I think that just puts change in your pocket and helps you lead a church that's in transition to more, stability, and right when we were just getting stable, boom, pandemic, right? And so I always like to say, we've pastored 3 churches at Real Life: the transitional church, the pandemic church, and now the post-pandemic church. And so, I've learned a ton.
How did you guys recover after COVID? What was it like coming back, as far as, what was gathering together? And then obviously you are where you are now.
Yeah, our community, again, is super diverse community. Yeah. And so we walked in the tension of, not leaning left, not leaning right, but just walking in the tension and really just obeying the voice of the Lord and what he told us to do. Mm-hmm. He literally told us to be the church, and not worry about going to church, but be the church. And so that's what we focused on. We started a food pantry. There was a
City Serve, right?
It was City Serve, and then it was started by one of the churches in our denomination, started like a food pantry network, and we kind of just joined in and like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
We were handing out like 30 boxes a week out of a container that someone from our church donated. They work for a container, well, one of those metal containers. They donate it to us. We put some shelves in there, and we were literally like 30 boxes a week. Whoever would come by, just being available. People would call us, need some food. We'd either drop it off or they'd come get it. And that just the faithfulness of wanting to be the church.
Yeah.
God just opened the doors. We started partnering with the school district. And we actually, during the pandemic, those couple years, we distributed almost 3 million pounds of food. The school district opened up. We're right next to Nutrition Food Services in Natomas. And so, they opened up. They let us unload on their dock, let us use their refrigerators, everything. And so we were handing out 20-pound food boxes. And then what was cool was, we had churches, nonprofits.
Yeah, our church was doing it.
Yeah, pulling up to the school district dock, and we were loading up there. So
filling up U-Hauls.
Yeah, U-Hauls.
Yes,
for real.
Yep, and we were waiting in line. That was incredible, man.
So I think the way we just walked in the tension of it, and again. We had our share of people leave. We had our share of people mad at us for different reasons. And we just tried to create environments when we could have church or host church where, hey, if you wanted to wear a mask, we had a room for that. Yeah. If you didn't want, we had a room for that. If you want a mixed environment, we had a room for that.
Right.
And so we just tried to provide everybody a place where they could feel like they were, seen and heard.
Yeah.
And so
how did you kind of keep yourself healthy, like in a good place? Because a lot of guys, even I had, went through a time of, man, it was low. It was hard getting out of there, and personally for an emotional level.
Yeah.
Where were you at on the health scale, and then how did you?
Yeah. I think I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Every day was like a decision, and not just like a decision, but you could feel the weight of every decision. Am I going to get this right?
Right.
Am I going to get it wrong? Are people going to be mad?
Yeah.
All of those things that we all, dealt with. And then it being an election year, which elections cycles are just particular hard historically at our church. And so that was going to be my first election cycle, and literally I got to a point where I was like, I can't even wrap my head around that, let alone the pandemic. And so I went to the board and asked if we could just take a mini sabbatical. So Amy and I took off 4 straight weeks.
Wow.
And we went.
That's awesome.
And we did we went to Colorado to a place called Quiet Waters. And we did their leadership track there, and there you get 3 hours of counseling a day, equipping, and it was just kind of it literally was Quiet Waters. It was a quiet place. Yeah. And it was just kind of
how long were you there?
We were there for a week.
Okay.
And then obviously other weeks we were just,
random
here
places,
and there, random places, just taking a break from, church in general. And it was probably one of the best things. I had never done that in ministry. I'm probably like most people. I would just go.
Yeah.
If I did stop, it was probably more of a staycation because I couldn't afford a vacation.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, that was probably one of the best things.
So how did that 1 week there impact you guys? Because that's 21 hours of counseling, right?
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it was great for my wife, Amy. She was, trying to, again, not expecting to be, lead pastors.
Yeah.
Like, how do we do this together? She's always been a great support, always been like, you've got to have a spouse who's flexible and understands ministry and the demands of it, which
it's a calling for them.
Yeah, which over the top, right? Yeah. And then, I think just all of a sudden, like, now we're working together with this. We're in the trenches together.
Yeah.
And we're walking through a pandemic together.
Yeah.
How do we do this? I think we just needed some help sorting all that out.
Right.
So it was really good, just kind of coming away with some clarity and maybe even, working through some of the false expectations that we take on.
Yeah.
We feel like we got to be this
Yeah.
for everybody else. And I think just getting free of some of that stuff was good for both of us.
That's
but
good.
Especially for her, yeah.
So, you spoke of that time where you're in the season of elections, you got the COVID or whatever, and then, the racial tension that came with George Floyd and how all of that, was going down. And then you're a pastor of a very diverse and black community is really strong in your church. How did you, you got another thing there that you're working through. How did you navigate that season?
Yeah, I think one of our values is learn empathy, and you've got to learn to walk in other people's shoes. I'm definitely, obviously not going to pretend like I understand, what someone in the African community is, all their feelings, all their experiences. I did a lot of learning and listening during that season, and I think, I think we handled that well, and I think our people also responded to that. Dr. Scott Hagan hosted George Floyd's funeral, and so we were tied to that in that way. Our church was featured on a news. We had an officer at that time that was involved in it. And so we were right in the middle of it. And I think, for me, just learning, listening, and not just learning and listening, but also, standing, with my brothers and sisters as well.
Yeah.
And, I look back now, I'd like to go back and just, there's a lot that happened in that season.
Dude, there was a lot that went down.
Yeah, made a lot of, I'd say statements and different things just to help us navigate the season. And again, a lot of those are just online. It's not even in person all the time. So it's even harder. But I think, I think we showed a lot of solidarity during that time, and I think it helped us.
How do you think it helped you as a leader? Just what was maybe one thing you took away that it's like it's helped you learn during that time that just applies throughout?
I think it's our value of just learning empathy. I think we listen to argue a lot in our culture and not listen to learn. And again, I think as a leader, we always have to be teachable. I think we can see things. We can tend to see things one way, the way we experienced it.
Yeah.
And because we don't hear stories. I remember you had Decoy Porter on, a couple months back.
Yeah.
And I remember going to a forum that they had and hearing his story. I'd never heard anything like that at the time, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
And and you begin to feel their pain. You begin to kind of identify with some of the things that we don't have to go through.
And you never even thought or gave it that never was even something you say that would never happen to me. You could never wrap your mind around being, like for him, arrested for no reason by a bunch of cars. You're face down on the freeway, and that's insane.
Yeah, and hearing those again, I think hearing those stories.
Yeah,
you can't just look past those, and you have to. Again, I think you got to rally around stories like that, and I think that's what we did as a church, and it's what we continue to do, and
So now, kind of catching up present on, okay, you're doing 4 services, you're maxing out the place. I guess there's more breathing room. I haven't been there since you've.
We got some empty seats now.
Yeah, so you guys you have room to grow. So you've got a building, and share about that. What's happened, what's transpired with that, and acquiring something.
Yeah. We just signed and purchased a building. It was a former Gold's Gym in our community, and so from what I understand, it was like the gym in Natomas. Yeah, it was a Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
So I guess Kings players used to work out there.
Oh, wow.
The who's who, because the Kings used to play right in our community, and so it was kind of it was kind of the community hub.
Oh, wow.
At one time, and so. Yeah, God.
And you were shopping for years, right?
Yeah, we've been, one of the first things that the search committee asked me, do you think you could find us a permanent home? And, you know, you're going through the interview, you're like, of course, you know,
Yeah.
And, you know, not knowing the church's financial situation at that point in time, and not understanding what it was really going to be like to, you know, inherit a church that, you know, has a gap between its, you know, founding leader and the leader who's coming. You know, finances take a dip during those things.
Right,
And
right.
so it was a miraculous, a miracle that we experienced. There was a church, another church in our denomination that was in our community. In 2019, I had met with the pastor and said, hey, what do you think it'd be like to merge? They were at a point of probably about 30 or so people, had 40,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. At that point in time, we were 2 services. We had people, but, you know, it was getting tight even back then.
Yeah.
And, you know, just for whatever reason, timing, where they were at, they had gotten at that church the same time we had gotten at Real Life. And so they ended up selling that building. And so, you know, 2023 comes along, and just felt led to reach out to him. Again, kind of the same thing. They had no longer had a building, but had resources. We had people. Hey, let's do something together. And it was a couple of those types of meetings, and then just kind of just said, I just gave it to the Lord.
Yeah.
And in 2024, the pastor reached out to me, and he said, hey, I think we're ready to move forward. And I said, you want to merge? He said, no, we're going to dissolve, and we're going to write you a check. And that check was for almost $1 million.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And 2 weeks, that was 2 weeks. So that was 2 weeks before the building, the gym that we had been looking at. So 2 weeks later, that building went on the market, and we were in perfect position now.
Yeah.
Which if it would have, you know, if it would have been before that, we would have been like, yeah, we can't do it.
Right.
But because of that gift, it put us in position, and here we are. We just
Yeah.
closed on it. So, yeah, it's exciting, and we're supposed to, you know, hopefully occupy end of 2026, and
Okay.
we got many more miracles to see happen.
Yeah.
For that to happen. But
So in
exciting.
18 months, you think your guys are possible to get in?
Yeah, into 2026, beginning of 2027. I'm hoping Christmas 2026
Nice. Yeah.
will be some of our first services, but we'll see. God willing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what? So right now, what is like the next step? Where are you at in the process?
Yeah, so we're just in the planning, permitting, design phase. So, you know, architects are walking the building.
Yeah.
And then the permitting process, which they say will take the rest of this year.
Brother.
And so, yeah, that's the
6
whole first
months.
part. Yeah, at least 6 months.
Yep.
And that's if everything goes according
I've been
to
through
plan.
that twice, man. Ours was a much smaller project, man. So,
Yeah.
but I heard they've picked up and they've changed things to where it's a little
Yeah, and we're
faster.
working with some good people, so
Got some contacts and
Yeah.
connections.
so yeah, hopefully they've got good. Well, they're reputable, so I'm sure they have good relationships with
Right.
the city.
Well, and by then you'll need to get in there because you'll be at 5 services.
No, we're not doing 5, bro.
You said you were doing 4, dude.
No, we're not doing 5. I could guarantee you, we're not doing 5.
You made the executive decision.
Yeah, we're not doing 5. I think my team would all quit and leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had so you were living in Folsom,
Mm-hmm.
and you had been there for a while, and then you worked for Jesus Culture, and you had been there with New Life too. But before that, you came from Santa Rosa area,
Fremont.
Yeah, and you went there with the intentions of starting a church, but that was rough.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah, church
Share
planning
about
horror stories.
Yeah.
So we were in the Bay Area. That's where we grew up, Fremont. We spent 10 years, our young adult life in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County.
Yeah.
We're youth pastors there, and then ended up going back to Fremont working for the youth pastor that we got saved under. He started a church.
Okay.
He was about 4 years in, and we're in Fremont, you know,
Yeah.
living in the parsonage.
Wow.
And I always felt like in my heart, like I'm going to plant a church one day. And, I think, the Bay Area accelerated that for us. I mean, there's just, you can't, I think that, the lowest price of housing that day was like $650,000 for like, the worst neighborhood in Fremont.
Wow.
And we just didn't see a future there.
That was how many years ago? 20 years ago?
2003,
Yeah.
And so,
wow.
Yeah, we're looking to Sacramento. We had some friends that moved to Folsom saying, man, you guys should come plant a church. And so, met with the district. Back then, they didn't have assessments. I mean, if there were assessments, they would have looked at my checkbook and said, hey, man, why don't you go and work for a church, save some money,
right.
Get someone behind you, and then think about planting a church. But there was no assessments, man. Back then, you got the Pentecostal pat and kind of the go get 'em, boy,
pat.
Let us know if you make it kind of thing,
We're with you, brother.
Yeah, and so we did that, and, we did. And again, I didn't realize we were doing this. We bought our first home. My wife started a new job. Kids had a new school. I was working, they say bivocationally. I had 3 jobs, you know what I mean? Just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And so we were doing the new city, all of that. And let's just start a church on top of all that.
Right,
and so,
right.
5 major life changes. And then, hey, let's add on a church plant. And it was just a recipe for disaster. And again, we jumped the gun. I said, hey, we're going to live here for a year. And we caved to the pressure of starting early. Or I said we. It was me.
Really?
I always tell people I've got the 10th gift of the Holy Spirit, getting ahead of God. Yeah. And so, the plan was to wait a year, kind of get to know our community, get to know people.
Yeah.
And jump the gun and kind of just said, no, we got to hurry up. Folsom's building, Folsom's growing.
Yeah.
We got to hit this growth curve. And 18 months in, I said, man, I'm done.
Really?
Yeah. We had some great people come through, but that's exactly what happened. They just come through. We could never kind of sustain the core. It was always like people were here for 6 months. They'd either get hired, take a full-time position somewhere else at a church, or literally just move, kind of just were like here for a minute, then gone, cross country or something.
Right.
And so, we never took root, man. And so I just closed the doors.
So were you guys, did you actually have like full services going? And
yeah, we had full services.
Where were you meeting at?
We were meeting at an elementary school in Folsom.
Oh, okay.
And I did so for about, I think, a year or so. I think like 6 months kind of ramping up.
Yeah.
And then like 18 months total, yeah. And then it was just kind of like, it was Memorial. I can remember the day. It was Memorial Day. Mm-hmm. Which holidays are so hard on church plants.
Yeah.
It was Memorial Day.
You started on Memorial Day?
No, this was just a service, right?
Oh, okay.
And so like we had
I was gonna say that's a rough.
We
day
had
to
Easter.
start.
We had our biggest Easter. In our first Easter was like, I don't know, it was like 85 people, and I was like, man, it's gonna build.
Yeah, here we go, we're rocking.
And like literally 2 months later on Memorial Day weekend, which Folsom's got a big lake.
Yeah,
it's just a different culture. I mean, people pull up their jet skis and boats in the parking lot.
Oh,
I mean, that's just that was the culture, and so.
Yo, everybody. Hey, in case you don't know, the reason why I left senior pastoring my church in Sacramento was initially started because I wrote this book called No More Dad Issues. And this has been the main platform of me going and speaking on father wounds. And so that's what I do now. And so pastors, if you'd like to have me come and speak and learn more about my book and my message, you can do that. Just go to DaveNovakMinistries.com and you can find out more. And just so you can see what it's all about, check out this video, and I hope to hear from you soon.
What if I told you that you could break free from the wounds and the frustrations with your dad? The resentment, the abandonment, the abuse that you have felt maybe, or even you get to a place of having bitterness that is built up, or you feel cheated because of your relationship with your dad. Hi, I'm Dave Novak, and I recently wrote a book called No More Dad Issues. And the reason I did was because I struggled with these issues for years. And I learned over time that in our culture and in our generation, dad issues are pervasive throughout. It doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't discriminate. I've known people in their latter years who still are feeling the sting of dad issues because you never grow out of them. And so when I wrote this book, I decided to be very transparent with my feelings, my thoughts, my struggles in this bitter and difficult relationship that I had with my dad, who was also a pastor. And so I found this freedom. I'm going to tell you how I went through it, how I got through it, so that you can have it as well. I wrote No More Dad Issues so that you can find what I have found. So pick up a copy and let's begin to break free today.
Day, and like 5 people came to church, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm done, you know. And that was kind of the last meeting. I said, hey, why are we trying to do all of this? Let's just meet in my home. It'll save a lot of energy. And then just by making that move, we lost more people, you know. And then I just was like, I'm just gonna lay this down.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Dude, how did that hit you that day when you're...
Yeah, I just think it's a reality check, you know. It's, I think I think if I would have had the assessments and the tools available, I could have probably avoided the whole situation. We would have had a coach or something. We wouldn't have been. I don't think we would have planted.
Yeah.
But I just think, you know, we parachuted, you know, and when you parachute, especially in a church plant, you're not bringing a team, you know, none of that.
Right.
You know, it's like no team, no money.
Yeah.
All of those things. Yeah, it was just better for us just
you know
to lay it
what?
down.
I hear of guys doing that, going into other cities, and they're my heroes, dude. These guys pull it off, and I'm like, I planted a church, and that freaked me out.
Right.
And I thought I was nuts to go from another. You know, I know of one who went from Minnesota to, you know, Placerville, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you're crazy. And he's rocking it, dude, and still has it going. And, you know, so those guys are my heroes because I'm like, I don't even think I've done half of what you did because that takes a lot of guts. But also you're just going like, we don't know a soul.
Right. No, and I think...
That's rough.
Yeah, I think at that time at least, and maybe it is now, I'm not really... I do feel like our church will launch churches at some point in our future, but I think, you know, especially back then, church planting was romanticized a little bit. You know, the stories you heard were like, I started with 8 people in my living room, you know, and you're like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of caught up in the romanticism of it, of like, hey, but like, I wonder, like, even now I was just thinking as we're talking, like, I wonder what the statistics are of like, you know, the people that, the church planters that we platform versus the church planters that we never hear about because they never made it.
Well, so the stats, at least when I started a church, which was in 2008, 78% of the churches fail within 4 years.
Wow. See, that's crazy.
78%, dude. So I mean, I remember when we had made it to like year 5, I felt like I looked up at the scoreboard and I'm like, we made it.
Yeah.
We're an actual church. We're gonna be around.
5 years is they say 5 years you're official church.
Oh, dude, I was working so hard and I felt like I looked up at the scoreboard and I'm like, we're winning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, if you really look at it, we're all trying to be like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, of church planting, and you know, we're not hearing any of the hard stories, and I'm sure they're out there now, and we're learning. And I've been able to help a ton of guys. Just hey, help me learn from your mistakes, and so you know, it's not all wasted.
Yeah,
I don't think anything's wasted. I think the Lord can redeem all of it, and so I've been able to encourage guys, man. Hey, don't quit. You know, and this is what I do differently, and all of those things.
Well, and you know, again, you know, we hear a lot of these churches that have, I mean, like a Real Life, or you know, these other ones that have planted, and they've got hundreds and hundreds, or they've got thousands, or whatever. But you don't, like you said, you don't hear about. You know what? This church started 20 years ago. They have 150 people. I mean, you talk about faithfulness,
Yes.
hard work, diligence,
Yeah.
no quit. Lives are being changed.
Yeah.
That whole, and we just look right over those.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've got there's 3 guys in my community that planted over 20 years ago.
Yeah, dude.
And they're still there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. You
Yeah.
know, they don't have the biggest churches,
Yep.
but man, they got the biggest heart for their community.
And the legacy that they're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So when you had made the decision, like, we're shutting down, was there relief or heartbreak?
It was both. I think the word that comes to mind is there was a lot of disappointment. And it wasn't disappointment in God. Amy and I had a great foundation. We went to a 2-year discipleship school. And so it wasn't a disappointment in God, but I was super disappointed in people. In general, not particular any one person or anything like that, but just disappointed in people. And I think it was just kind of the expectation I think I had. I don't think it was a healthy expectation, but the mentality was like, man, you've served, you've been faithful, you've helped other people's vision, and now it's your time.
Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, it was just kind of like a letdown.
Right.
And so, to be honest with you, that kind of started kind of a dark 2 years for me. I was out of vocational ministry for the first time since I was, probably early 20s.
Really?
And so I had a real...
And you were about what age?
That's funny. I was 33, so I got the year of crucifixion. But yeah, it was 33, 34.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. And yeah, it was just first time I was out of vocational ministry. And so, ministry was a huge part of, probably more than I even thought, part of my identity.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty much all I knew. I mean, I got saved when I was 18.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to do anything else. You couldn't have told me to do anything else, man.
Yeah.
I remember I was working with my dad one summer. Came home from Bible college, and I remember I was a forklift driver and all those kind of things, loading trucks. And one time
I did that.
They asked me to empty the trash in the warehouse. I remember I'm bawling, Lord, you've called me to more than this, So like I said, man, I was just 110% in. It's kind of just all I know how to do. And so that's it. That's gone. I mean, I tried to find ministry jobs, and a lot of the ministry jobs even outside of our denomination, I was trying.
Yeah.
I was trying anywhere and everywhere. Everybody wanted a 4-year degree. I didn't have a degree. I didn't, I had 10 years of experience being a youth pastor, basically.
Yeah.
And
a
was
failed church planner.
And a failed church plant.
Yeah.
It was we don't have no use for you, man.
Right.
And so I recreated, I guess, myself. I took that resume. You learn a lot, right? When you're a youth pastor and, 10 years of ministry. So I turned it into basically a glorified executive administrative assistant, got a job at a HVAC construction company, was a project assistant. And so did that for a year. And then a buddy of mine talked me into going to work for a mortgage company, not as a broker, but being over this department it was called Strategic Wealth Coach, and I would help. The idea was I would go and help the broker's clients, get their finances order and different things like that, just kind of another service. And that year I made that move over there, which it was a dumb move. The economy crashed, so that was 2008, 2007, 2008. Worst year of my life. And so we just kind of plowed through that. And it
worst year of your life because you were not in ministry and you were just kind of working
during that time we landed at a church in Folsom, and it was one of the first pastors I met, and he just said, hey, just come and sit. And don't feel pressured to do anything. And so that's what we did. It was back then it was they called them secret churches.
Yeah.
And it was a great church, man. Small, like 120 people.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they just loved on us. We got involved in that community and was just able to, I think, just kind of get the relationships that we needed in that time.
Yeah.
That were in our community, and so that helped us. But again, I think working through that disappointment.
Yeah.
It kind of spun me out a little bit. I think I got a little bit sarcastic. I started not wanting to be in ministry, and had a conversation probably 2 years into this. I think if you don't deal with your disappointment, you kind of start falling into disillusionment, and I started getting a little bit disillusioned about ministry in general and being a little bit sarcastic.
Wow.
And we have a mutual friend, but I remember this mutual friend taking me out to breakfast, and I was telling him my sad story and my disappointment, and he kind of just spoke the truth in love, and he said, "You know what you need to do?" And I was like expecting to hear something, that I wanted to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, "You need to pick yourself up off the ground and dust yourself off and get back to doing what God has called you to do."
Wow.
And I went from that meeting, and at that time, there was a pastor that had been reaching out to me, and I was just kind of avoiding it. I didn't want to go. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I got to get back to my calling. And so, took the pay cut to get back into ministry, and I went on staff at New Life Community Church with Pastor Mark Tucker.
Yeah.
And and was there for 8 years. And
wow.
Probably some of the best ministry times that I've had was at New Life, and learning. Pastor Mark, I mean, he's still there, but started pastoring that church when he was 28.
Yeah.
So at the time, he hit some milestones, 20, 25. Now he's well into it, but I really learned a lot from him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just before we close, you went into a place too where you said you kind of were more kind of pulling back behind the scenes, and how because it was affecting you, kind of how you maybe identity and just
what would share? Yeah, there's a whole story behind that, and so one of the things that I did, is I did take on a false identity during that time because I was disappointed. And I just said, you know what, and I told myself, I'm not going to lead out front again. I'm just going to be the best second man that I possibly can be. And that's what I did. Yeah. I created literally a whole identity around being a backseat leader. I read every backseat book. At the time, there were only 2 about backseat leaders. There's some great books, The Second Chair, all of those books. I read them all. I'm like, I'm going to be this. Yeah. I started a backseat leader blog. I wrote over like 350 blogs, featured in magazines, all of those things, had a book laid out, and just took on this thing and really hid behind that. And it's probably another podcast.
But you didn't know you didn't know at the time you were doing that?
No, I was just I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself out there, but I'm going to be the best second guy I could possibly be. And that's what I did. And I literally hid behind that. Didn't know I was hiding behind it. Probably, like I said, to about year 10 or so.
Really?
And God just started making me uncomfortable again. But yeah, created this, what ended up, being revealed as kind of a false identity, and just a place where I could just protect myself from getting hurt again from people.
Wow.
And again, I love working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I don't have to, again, back then, I didn't have to work with people, work alongside. I just love
lower
serving.
Expectations, right?
I love the ministry, You
Yeah.
got something for me to do gonna keep me at the church till midnight, I'll do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
I'm gonna execute. And I did have a heart to help lead pastors execute vision.
Yeah.
I kind of just feed off of vision. And so it seemed like it was right.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, unknowingly, I had taken on a false identity. And but again, another podcast, but that all got exposed and kind of blew up on me. Yeah.
Okay, you got to share just a piece of that. You can't just say that and then like, yeah, okay.
Hey, this is what get people on part 2 of the podcast, man.
Yeah. So, did that carry over when you were in Jesus culture too?
Yeah, and one of the things, and that's part of the reason. I think one of the things I'm super thankful for, Pastor Banning there at who's like, one of my good friends, has been since 1999, is when I was at Jesus Culture, I got the tools to work on myself, right? And I never had the assessments, never had the tools, the personality assessments,
right.
Working through your strengths, even knowing what your strengths were, your weaknesses. I took all the gift tests and those kinds of things, but this was like another level, and I just learned a lot about myself, a lot of some of the things that I was hiding behind. I think one of the things was that I learned at Jesus Culture, one of the most important things, and I think you're always learning this, but like I thought that all conflict was unhealthy. There was no such thing in my portfolio, at least, and in my experience, there was no such thing as healthy conflict. And my time at Jesus Culture helped me, kind of helped give me a framework on how to have healthy conflict, because I'm an avoider.
Okay, yeah.
I'm an avoider, and so, it just kind of gave me some framework to just be a healthier leader, and just through that process, this whole false identity got exposed, and then God just kind of started squeezing things, making me uncomfortable. And again, I wasn't like unknowingly that he was preparing me for real life.
Yeah. It
wasn't even on the thing, but he just kept making me more and more uncomfortable behind the scenes, so to speak. And I'm like, Lord, and the first thing I was like, Lord, I'm not looking for nothing. Because, again, I got the 10th gift of the Holy Spirit, getting ahead of God. I'm not going to church staffing. I'm not going to Vanderbloemen. I'm not even looking at those sites.
Church.
No. I'm not doing any of that. Banning is going to literally have to drop kick me out of here. Yeah. I'm not going.
Wow.
And just through that process, God making me more uncomfortable. And then, ultimately, basically what had happened, I had met with, a guy that's just known for, I call him, he's my prophetic counselor. And it was first time meeting him. I had heard about him. Someone said, hey, you need to go talk to him. And we were just getting to know each other. We were sitting at a Starbucks in Gold River. And we're just kind of sitting out on a patio. And he's like, tell me about yourself. And so I'm just kind of telling him, like, man, I got a heart serving, and I said, man, I got a blog called Backseat Leader. And he says, what'd you say? I said, oh, Backseat Leader. Told him I write blogs. He's like, no, who told you that? And he said, and that just led to kind of the exposing this false identity. And he said, he broke it down at that Starbucks in about an hour, just said, man, you need to break ties with that lie. Because God hasn't called you to the back seat; He's called you to the front seat. Wow! And I'm just hearing,
that's awesome,
I'm hearing this for the first time, And I'm like, man, I got 350 blogs, a website, a book plan,
Dude, did you break down? Emotionally, were you just like broken when he said that?
I was just kind of like, he nailed. When someone reads your mail, and I'm like, you're right. Wow. And so I just went through the process of he said, go shut down the website. And during that time, like, I stopped writing, I shut down the blog, all those types of things. And again, little did I know God was preparing me to, lead Real Life Church. But that started the journey.
Wow.
And
how long after that conversation and then you ended up at Real Life?
That was probably, before I got the invite, I'm thinking it was probably 8 months before that. Probably that somewhere in that 8 months.
Wow, that was right before.
So that happened early early 2017. No, early 2016. And then, yeah, just that process.
Dude, look at what the Lord, I mean, just like, no, dude, this is where we're.
Yeah. No, I'm preparing you for this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before we end, just because I love football.
Yes.
Okay, so your son is, because I think it's dope, man.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
So what's it like with your son in the NFL and just that whole scene, and it's a world I'm not familiar with.
Right.
You are. What's that like? What do you love about it? What are, I don't know, maybe challenges? I don't know. Just
I mean,
what are your thoughts, feelings on it?
I mean, dude, it's a dream come true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, seeing your son's dream, you never think your kid's gonna play in the NFL.
Yeah.
But seeing just how God has went before him, and from high school to college, the University of Cincinnati, just I mean, we've been watching him play sports since he's 5 years old. He's 28.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're still enjoying it. It's going to come to an end here pretty soon. But it's just been awesome to see how he's handled it all, and how God has used his testimony, his platform, really to, I mean, from leading players to Christ to now when he's home in the off season, he's working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and to see his testimony developed is awesome, and to really his faith crystallize through his career. Yeah. I mean, dude, like we're super proud. He scored a couple touchdowns in his career, but I don't care if he catches another NFL pass. I mean, when I'm watching him like share his testimony before, I went to Bella Vista last year, and he shares his testimony. Another youth pastor got up and just did the altar call, and 500 kids raised their hand. Wow. I'm like, dude, that's
awesome. That's what matters.
Yeah, that's what matters. And so it's been awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. It's hard to be a parent of a player, especially when the media is, criticizing your kid. You want to, get a burner account, and, get on there and start, Yeah. So that stuff is hard. It never gets easy with that. I'm still bitter at the Packers, but, the Packers media, but, it all comes with the territory. He don't let it bother him, but,
Well, he has, and here's the thing. What's the average career length of an NFL player? Isn't it like 3 years?
No, it depends who you ask, but it's less. It's actually, I think, less than a year.
Yeah,
is the average for the person coming in and out, and he's
6 years in almost.
Yeah, this will be year 6.
That's awesome. Dude.
And so has a workout next week, and so hopefully he's with a team by the time this airs. So everybody will know, because I will definitely be posting, who the new team that I'm a fan of. Because every time a team changes, I'm a bandwagon fan right now until he retires.
Right, and then when the Niners play him, I can't cheer for him.
Yeah.
But I will if
Yeah, no. Hey, if the Niners
picked him up, dude.
No, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be dope?
Then all my friends would love me. All my pastor friends.
Yeah.
All you 49er fans.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, man, I appreciate you.
Yeah, no.
I really appreciate you sharing your heart and all of this. I'm sure there's a lot that, even some of your church folks didn't know. And but one thing I really love about this, and for those of you who are watching, is for lead pastors to be able to just watch, see the ups and downs of other pastors, and to be like, it's okay that I've gone through this, or I am, or I'm not alone. And, how can pastors, let's say, get in contact with you if, the church growth, you've already had some that are contacting you about services, and, or just like, hey, man, I heard your testimony, X, Y, and Z. How can someone get a hold of you and social media?
Yeah, they can hit me up. My platform's huge, Dave. No,
I know.
They can message me on Instagram, email me, deand@rlcsac.com. Yeah.
And your social media, your handle for Instagram is?
Just my first initial last name, Deguara.
Okay.
And so just hit me up.
And we'll have that in the notes too, so people can see it. But hey, I really want to help develop or build the pastoral community.
Yeah,
and
appreciate what you're doing, man. It's cool.
Man.
I was so encouraged with your interview with Pastor Perry.
Yeah,
man, I was taking some notes, man.
Oh, dude,
I mean, that guy's gold.
Yeah.
So thanks
He's
for
incredible.
just all the guys, literally all the. I've watched every one, by the way.
Really?
So I've
you're
gotten something
probably
from
the
everyone.
only one, man. But thank you. That's the kind of friend you are. That's why we're friends.
Hey, man.
No, hey, I'm going to say one other thing about you, and I'm not, just because how you've impacted me. The fact that you have, there are many times we text a lot, but when you just call me out for no reason, in the past when you did that, I'm like, he's calling me right, like this guy has time. He's way busier than me. This guy has time, but when you've done that, it's that was unexpected. You made me feel special, and that you really cared. And so, anyway, thank you.
I think that. I mean, we'll close with this.
Yeah.
We'll close with this, Dave.
Well, thank
we'll land the plane.
Would you land the plane?
No, I think we make time for what's
Do
important.
we need some background music?
I think there is a bit of false
music?
assumption though here that like pastors are so busy we don't have time to pick up the phone and call a friend. And probably it wasn't just me calling you because I felt like you needed something. Dude, I'm calling you because I needed something. I just need a friend.
Yeah.
And I think that we're better when we're forming friendships, we're in relationship, we're talking. And so, when I'm calling you, man, it's because I need to laugh at myself. I need somebody to make fun of me.
Dude, good. That's good, man. So. That's the only kind of friends in ministry I can have, man. It's like, dude, if we can't, mess with each other and push each other, I mean, and some of us, we just need our ego checked at the door,
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, yeah, I love you.
Thousands are going to watch this. So.
That's prophetic. I'm going to believe that. But anyway, bless you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what God's going to continue to do with Real Life.
Yeah, man. Excited about your ministry, too.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, man.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. And make sure you subscribe and you continue to be a part.